So when I was searching for a story, I found myself looking for things that were close to home or close to my heart, and I was inspired by the story of my grandfather, who unfortunately passed away several years ago. But his is the story of love that lasts, and really just watching my father take care of him towards the end of his life inspired me to reflect on what it means to get older, what it means to find comfort in a routine, and what it means to love forever. And so from that came the story The Lunchbox.
Po prečítaní toho scenáru som bol prekvapený, že ako mladý človek, že sa zakúsol do takejto témy, ktorá je dosť taká náročná aj pre skúseného režiséra. Tak potom som si hovoril, tak skúsim teda, keď takto to napísal, že ako to chce realizovať nejakým spôsobom. Takže to bolo také dráždivé.
Ona žije s mužom jeden tichý život, aspoň tak mi to signalizovalo, keď som čítala scenár. Že je to jeden tichý, zavedený život so svojou pravidelnosťou, ale ako keby tých dvoch ľudí spájala nejaká trauma. Rozmýšľala som, že čo to bolo. Strata dieťaťa, povedzme, jediného. Oni nemajú deti, aspoň o tom nevieme. Ale čo bolo to, že tá žena potom onemela a odišla úplne? Teda odišla aspoň v zmysle normálnej komunikácie.
Tým, že je to strašne ťažká téma, vlastne ten príbeh, tak snažil som sa vlastne zachytiť tam také tie paradoxy toho života. Že by to nebolo od začiatku jasné, že sa stane katastrofa proste, pretože v živote to tak nefunguje. Ako stane sa katastrofa a kľudne svieti slniečko, vtáčiky spievajú a človek sa diví, však ale prečo nehrmí, prečo nefúka vietor, prečo ľudia tiež neplačú. To je o tom, že prečo sa depresívny človek cíti dobre, keď je zima a prší, pretože má vtedy pocit, že to všetko s ním proste tak súciti. No ale ten paradox života je práve v tom, že to tak není.
It's difficult to talk about influences for the film because I felt like there were so many, and just me personally, when I'm working on a piece, I try to be as open and receptive to any personal or professional influences, or whether it's artistic influences from all directions, because you never know what shows itself in its work. I find it kind of funny. My father, when he reflects about his past film work, he says that the film really captures you as a person and who you were at that particular time, and so I think The Lunchbox is somewhat the same for me, because it shows what topics, what themes I was thinking about, and where I was at that time. But as for artistic influences, I don't even know if I have courage to mention some, because I feel like I am at the beginning of my career, and talking about these great accomplished directors, it feels a little foolish, but I definitely knew that this story had to have its own rhythm. It had to be slow, and it had to have the core of the emotions. And one of my influences just through these long shots was Andrej Tarkovsky. Of course, he's known to make films that are radically different structurally, but just the slow rhythm, which almost makes everything feel more natural, was a big influence for me from his work, and also the way he approaches people, the way he worked with his cast and his crew, was also a big influence for me, because I read up on his work and I watched documentaries, and I felt like he was a great influence. Also, I knew that the film had to have a distinct look, a distinct feel, and I found that Milos Forman was one of my influences. The movies that he made in Czechoslovakia back when he was living there were kind of pieces, like Loves of a Blonde or Fireman's Ball. There were pieces that reflected the culture, and I felt like I had to do the same thing. Not so much make a commentary on it or make a parody of the culture, but just to capture it as it is, and I think he does that in his work fabulously. And there's countless other directors and films that kind of either consciously or subconsciously came to manifest itself in my work, but I feel like it came together to be something unique.
The Lunchbox uses repetition in order to establish the character of Josef and his daily life, and it really came together in the editing room. The director he shot it so that the intent was to be edited so that it seemed very repetitive, but it wasn't until we saw the shots and realized that okay, this is going to work like this. We need to take this and we need to make it feel like, even though we're seeing the same things happen over and over again, something's different each time. So while it feels repetitive, it's repetitive while revealing new information at the same time. And I think editing was a big part of establishing that feeling, so that when obviously the inciting incident occurs 10 minutes into the film, we get a good it's a sudden break for the audience. It really turns the audience on their head, because it's now something completely different that they have not seen before.
The film is really about the construction of the routine and then about the destruction of the routine.
Tá scéna ten fakt je veľmi naturálny a je, povedzme, nechutne naturálny. Nechutným spôsobom. Je to čosi, čo je... No je to nechutné. Ale potom, ako to bolo snímané a ako mi režisér vysvetlil, že ako to bude sprostredkovávané do obrazu, tak ma to veľmi upokojilo.
Ja som ostal proste sám sebou nejakým spôsobom a som nekomunikoval. Ja proste som sa musel uzatvoriť. A keď sa človek uzatvorí, tak potom to nejako ide ľahšie potom už. A dá sa, lebo tá koncentrácia musí byť o to silnejšia, lebo tam ten text nebol.
Myslím si, že je to otázka koncentrácie. Je to otázka koncentrácie a ako ja som pripustila ten vnútorný svet rúžený, ako som ho vpustila do môjho vnútorného sveta. Respektíve, ako som ja bola koncentrovaná na ten vnútorný svet, na jej myslenie mimoverbálne. A je to len otázka koncentrácie a otázka, do akej miery ja si to pripustím, že sa jedná o moju vec.
Vlastne tým, že on sa podvolil tomu rytmu života a bol vlastne vytrhnutý až tým, že ten život proste prináša tie situácie také, že tá rutina v živote nefunguje a sú zvraty, ktoré vlastne ho vytrhli z toho jeho zabehaného cyklu. Preto som aj ten kostým vlastne volil tiež také tie zemité tóny, takú tú vlastne úpetosť, uzavretosť vlastne jeho do takého svojho sveta, či už cez tú, jak sa to volá, vestičku, cez to sako, cez ten materiál vlastne. Akcia.
It was also interesting editing the dialogue and not having any idea of what they're saying, you know, literally, but I think through the film and through their actions, you don't even need the subtitles on the film. You know exactly what's going on and you know exactly what he's saying, although it may not be literal. You know what he's going through and what he's trying to project through the dialogue.
Lunchbox doesn't have a lot of dialogue in the film. I believe one of the sound people told me that it had a total of 6 minutes of dialogue, and it's a 34-minute film. So the ratio of dialogue to everything else is amazing for a film of that length. This changed my approach only slightly, because dialogue isn't necessarily what we're taught to cut to when we're editors. The most important thing is when you have good actors, when you have great actors, like we had for the Lunchbox, they wear their emotions on their face. And we can tell when an emotional beat or turn happens in the scene just by the expression on their face. And because of that, it didn't really matter that there wasn't a lot of dialogue to edit this piece together. It was just using the expressiveness of these actors that really helped it fall into place.
Tá postava ma zaujala práve tým, že toho textu nebolo tak moc a že sa išlo cez vnútorné pocity. A ja myslím, že aj pre diváka tie vnútorné pocity sú niekedy silnejšie, než je text. Lebo tým vnútrom človeka nejak, neviem to vysvetliť ako, ale niečo ide von, čo sa nedá povedať.
The emotional beats were the most easily presented of anything I've edited in the past few years. The actors were great, and when the actors are great, it makes the editor's job not only it doesn't make the job easy. It doesn't make the job easy. I don't want to say easy. It makes it almost like a dream, because you can just watch these actors. And the thing that you've been trained to do as an editor, which is feel when these changes occur in the scene, you can actually feel them, and that's what I felt on the Lunchbox. And it's a really rare feeling when you're often cutting, just student work for most of your time. But when you get to work with real actors, it's an amazing experience.
When it comes to the actors, I am very fortunate because Božidara Turzonovova, a great experienced Slovakian actress who's well known and has a very impressive filmography, decided to accept my offer. I actually, when I was doing the casting, I sat in on a few productions from the Slovak National Theatre. And I was just captured by her ability, and I finally mustered up the courage to ask her, and she accepted.
Mladý štáb, ktorý chce urobiť svoj film, a poznáte to, každý mladý režisér alebo herec, a najmä ešte keď je študent, tak robí film a má pocit, že skutočne nakláňa os zeme. tým filmom. V tom momente nie je na svete pre ňo nič dôležitejšie. A je veľmi dobre, keď ja na placi cítim, že sú tam ľudia, pretože momentálne nie je nič iné dôležité pre nich. Už také tie rutinné práce, aspoň u nás, že vidíte, že už si kamerman sadá na nejaký nábytok, aby nemusel stáť a už si štelizár, že už tam ten na mobile, taká tá nekoncentrovanosť divná. Obyčajne mladé štáby sú veľmi koncentrované pri práci a to strašne stimuluje aj herca.
I feel that every person that I've worked with doesn't really look at the question of the age. When they meet me, I present the idea to them, and from then on, just the communication grows. That's strictly about the film, and it doesn't matter how old I am or how old anyone is. It's about the experience that everyone has to bring to the table. And I tried to formulate and conceive my vision very clearly, and I did a bit of research, and I've picked up a few things from several sources, and one including my father. But I've also learned so much from everyone else, because they obviously had more experience, whether it's acting or whether it's doing the cinematography. But it's been a pleasant experience. But it is a little intimidating sitting there trying to give direction to actors who have been working in the profession for such a long time. And for everyone, who has a bit more experience under their belt, to look at me and say, "Are we good? Is that okay? Is that what you want?" And the pressure is on me, but I keep the best interest of the film in mind, and I hope that came through.
Mladý začínajúci režisér ešte nemá okolo seba ten nimbus režiséra a také to, čo tomu patrí, takéto šmé, ako sa vraví. Ale keď vie presne, čo chce a navyše to ešte aj mi sprostredkuje a otvára ma, doslova, že ma otvára pre túto postavu, tak to je veľmi dobré. To dokonca pre mňa je dobrá skúsenosť.
And working with her was excellent. I explained how the scene should look and what she should do, and she just did it perfectly. I was just stunned by how great and how fluent it was working with her. And the male lead, Stefan Šafarik, is a also experienced actor from the Zvolen Theater, and I had trouble finding the right actor, because I knew that the character of Josef had to be so specific and had to have a certain flavor to him. So I looked, but then I finally found him, and I approached him at his home, and he just fit perfectly. He looked the part, and I was very excited that he accepted as well.
Vôbec mám rada hercov, ktorí nenarobia okolo seba tresky, plesky. Sú to není nejaké také egocentrici a pritom majú svoju hodnotu. Pri práci to hneď človek zbadá.
Ja sa skláňam pred pani Božidarovou, že tá práca s ňou vlastne nebola práca, to bol život. No proste takto išlo nejako s ňou. A hoci som ešte s ňou predtým nemal tú možnosť robiť, takže mal som taký rešpekt, že je to osobnosť herecká. tak sme si zvykli na seba ako rodina.
Veľmi dobre sa mi robilo s pánom Šafárikom, naozaj.
I would think the most significant or interesting section or scene of the film that the sound work to me really shines forth is probably the simplest, and that is the scene when Josef comes home from the hospital at the first time and walks into the room with his medical book, and all it really is the production sound of him looking through the book and kind of reflecting on where he is at the time and what he needs to be doing, to get through the whole process. And really all we used was just a really low rumble of a room tone that would just really crank down just to kind of add, continuity through the shots and put the production sound on top of it, and added a little reverb that slowly kind of pops up in level as the scene progresses to kind of show the emptiness of Josef as the scene progresses. The emptiness and the loneliness kind of gets portrayed through the space and the reflections of the space.
There are a few things in the Lunchbox, a few scenes that I'm actually proud of. One of them would be the scene in which Josef and his wife are their day is paralleled, in which she is preparing his lunch and he's getting ready, and it's such a simple scene, but I really enjoyed how we see we're bouncing back and forth between the two characters as they prepare for their day, and I thought it was beautifully shot, and putting it together, it's really the one of the moments that really turns the film. It's one of the first real deviations from the repetitiveness that we have in the first opening scenes of the movie, and I really enjoyed cutting that scene together. Another scene I'm very proud of is towards the end of the film, when Josef and the watchmaker have their discussion about the note that Josef's wife left for him in the watch, and it's the only dialogue-heavy scene in the movie, but it maintains that importance on visuals, and the shot design, and the expressiveness in the actors' faces, and the emotional beats in the dialogue. It really just comes together for a perfectly powerful moment that really finally makes the change in Josef's character that we've been waiting for all this time.
Part of the theory I've been reading, Walter Murch once wrote or talked about in one of his books, was his approach to certain scenes and ideas of things is that he draws the circle. He draws the circle of the audience probably about 2/3 through, and he lets the audience kind of connect as they want to the rest of the circle to show what the character is going through. And I think one of those instances where I made that point was the second time when Josef's wife actually dies, and he's sitting in the control room eating lunch. And previously, when she has the stroke, the phone rings several times. And then that last time when he's sitting in there and she dies, the phone rings once. And you expect to hear the phone ring a second time, but at that point the camera cuts to a close-up of Josef's face, and you know exactly what happened, and you don't really necessarily need to hear a second telephone ring because that first ring was enough to express what had just happened.
The cemetery scene took place in a cemetery just outside of Žiar nad Hronom. I chose this location because it was so fascinating. It was a cemetery that was close to a factory, and this played a major role in the film because there was the contrast of the death and almost not being able to escape that factory and that routine. So it was a very important location.
Úplne najťažší moment bol práve to, jak dojde Jozef k Rúžene a zistí, že domov a Rúžena je mŕtva a začne jesť tú kašu s tým rezňom nedojedeným, vlastne ani nenačatým. Tam sme vlastne museli zmeniť spôsob snímania na ručnú kameru, lebo to bola situácia, pri ktorej mi nesedelo švenkovanie. Bola natoľko vypätá situácia, že švenkovanie z toho robilo taký medík. Proste moc natiahnuté to bolo, také neživé. Tá ručná kamera tomu dala dynamiku, aj podľa mňa divák sa bude vedieť viacej vcítiť aj do toho Jozefa. A tým pádom sme začali vymýšľať aj viacej tých vecí s ručnou kamerou, aby to tam nebolo solo.
The music is another component of the film which adds its own unique flavor to it, and I feel very fortunate because I found a great music composer, Boris Sevastiano, who lives in Ukraine, and I found him online, and I sent him an email hearing what some of his work and asking him whether he would be interested in composing the music score for the Lunchbox, and he replied and he said that he wanted to do it. So I sent him a link to the actual film, and he was very enthusiastic about it. The music that he composed was just, I was blown away by it because I felt like it captured the mood and the feelings of both the character and the story so well that I couldn't have hoped for anything better. The music in this particular film is somewhat different because it's not background music. It's not music that narrates what happens. It's music that's in the foreground of the film that works by itself to bring out certain emotions.
Takže to, aby ten film vyšiel, aby sa mu darilo, aby ten, kto ho vzliadne, aby mal dobré pocity, aby mal aspoň také pocity, ako som mal ja po prečítaní toho textu.